abandoned in a monster jungle, until a human became her only hope. The jungle was not quiet. It creaked and hissed and whispered like it wanted everyone gone. Leaves shivered without wind. Dark shapes moved between the trees, never fully seen, always watching. The air was heavy, wet, and full of strange smells. This was not a place for children. Yet a child lay there. A small alien girl, no more than 7 years old, lay half hidden under a twisted root. Her name was Lyra. Her skin was a soft lavender color, now covered in bruises and dirt. Her knees were scraped, her arms were cut, and her right leg shook every time she tried to move. Her clothes were torn and hanging in strips, soaked with mud. Around her wrist was a thin metal band. Once, it had glowed bright blue. It had been used for tracking, for safety, for home. Now its light flickered weak red, like a tired heartbeat. Almost empty. Almost dead. Lyra blinked and stared up at the trees. They were tall and close together, their branches locking out most of the sky. Only thin lines of pale light slipped through. Strange vines hung down like snakes, brushing her face when the trunks groaned. Somewhere far away, something growled. Something big. She tried to remember what had happened. The ship, the fire, the sound of metal tearing, people shouting, her mother's hand pushing her into a safety seat, her father yelling over the alarm, the feeling of falling, the ground hitting so hard everything went black. When she woke, there was only smoke and no one else. They must have run. They must have tried to escape. They must have forgotten her. Her chest hurt at that thought. Her lips trembled. She wanted to scream their names, but she knew the jungle would hear. So she bit her lip and swallowed the sound. Tears slipped down her cheeks anyway. She lay there for a long time. She did not know how many hours passed. The light changed color above the trees, then faded. The air grew colder. Her stomach hurt from hunger. Her throat ached from thirst. But fear was stronger than both. Finally, she forced herself to stand. Her legs shook. She grabbed a low branch to keep her balance. One step, then another. Her bare feet sank into wet soil. She stumbled over roots, brushed past heavy leaves, pushed through hanging vines that scratched her face. Every noise made her flinch. Then she heard it. At first, she thought it was thunder, a deep, heavy sound that rolled across the forest. But thunder did not grind. Thunder did not scream like metal. This sound was wrong. It was like a broken engine mixed with an animal's roar. The trees around her shook. Birds burst into the air in a wild cloud. Creatures she could not see darted into holes. Even the vines seemed to pull back, as if the plants themselves were afraid. Lyra froze. The sound came again. Closer now. Branches cracked. Something huge crashed through the undergrowth behind her. She did not turn to look. She did the only thing she could. She ran. Her legs were weak, but fear pushed them. Mud splashed high as her feet hit the ground. Twigs snapped under her. Branches slapped her face and arms. Her breath burned in her chest. She stepped on something sharp and cried out, but she did not stop. The jungle did not care that she was small. The sound chased her, louder and louder. The ground shook under each impact. She knew it was coming. She could feel it in her bones. She tried to go faster, but her body was done. Her foot caught on a thick root. She fell forward and hit the ground hard. The air flew out of her lungs. For a moment, she could not breathe. She pushed herself up just enough to see through the tall grass. It was there. A huge creature moved into view. Its body was covered in dark, armor-like plates that glistened with slime. For thick legs held it up, each one ending in heavy claws that dug into the ground. Its long head swung slowly from side to side, sniffing. Rows of sharp teeth lined its mouth. Its eyes glowed a deep, burning red. It sniffed once, then turned toward her. Lyra could not scream. There was no air left in her chest. She could only stare at those red eyes coming closer. Closer. Her fingers dug into the mud. She squeezed her eyes shut. This is it, she thought. No one is coming. No one is left. But the pain never came. Instead, the jungle shook with a different sound. A blast roared through the trees, bright and hot. Something slammed into the creature's side. It screamed, a horrible, tearing sound, and crashed against a tree. A second blast followed, bright orange and louder than thunder. Lyra opened her eyes. The monster lay motionless, its armor smoking. Someone stood over it. A figure in black and gray armor, tall and broad. A human. His boots were heavy, covered in mud. His armor was scratched and burned. In his hands, He held a metal weapon still glowing at the barrel, thin smoke rising into the damp air. He turned slowly, scanning the trees. Then he saw her. Lyra tried to crawl away, but her leg refused to move. She shook from fear and exhaustion. The human walked toward her, each step steady. He crouched down beside her. His face was strange. No glowing eyes. No horns. No colored skin. Just a tired, worn human face with dark circles and a few old scars. He said something in his own language. The words meant nothing to her, but his voice was low and calm, not angry. He reached out. She flinched. He stopped. Carefully, he set his weapon on the ground, away from her. Then he raised both hands, palms open, showing they were empty. He waited. His eyes watched her, not like prey, not like a problem, just a child. For a moment, the jungle seemed to hold its breath. Lyra's small hand loosened from the mud. She gave the tiniest nod. The human moved closer and lifted her gently. She expected cold metal. Instead, his arms were warm and strong. He held her like she was important, like she was not just some lost thing in a deadly place. As he carried her away from the fallen beast, the jungle sounds slowly returned. But nothing came near them, not with him there. For the first time since the crash, Lyra felt something other than fear. She felt safe. Lyra woke to warmth she didn't expect. Not the harsh heat of the sun, but the slow, soft glow of a small fire. Orange light danced on the cave-like hollow where she lay. Her head rested on something soft, a folded cloth that definitely hadn't been there before. She blinked, confused. Then she saw him, the human. He sat a short distance away with his back toward her, armor pieces spread around him. His hands moved with slow, careful motions as he cleaned mud from his weapon. The fire crackled between them, throwing shadows across his shoulders. Even sitting, he looked strong, like a wall built to hold back the jungle. Lyra's fingers curled around the blanket wrapped around her. It smelled like smoke and metal and safety. She checked her leg. It was bandaged neatly, wrapped with strips of clean cloth. The pain had softened, no longer sharp. He had helped her while she slept. He didn't leave. When the human noticed her shifting, he turned his head slightly. His eyes, though tired, softened when he saw her awake. He raised one hand slowly, not fast, not loud, just a gentle greeting. She didn't move. He reached into a pocket on his vest and pulled out a small silver packet. With a quiet rip, he opened it and took out a small, square piece of food. It looked dry, almost too simple to be real food. He placed it on a flat stone near her and backed away again. He didn't push her. He didn't speak loudly. He just waited. Lyra's stomach growled loudly. Embarrassing. But the human didn't laugh. He only looked at the fire again. After a few seconds, she crawled forward and picked up the cube. It was dry, smoky, a little salty, but the moment she swallowed, heat spread through her chest. Warmth she hadn't felt since the crash. She blinked fast, trying to keep the tears from falling. She didn't want him to think she was weak. But he saw. He didn't say anything, just shifted closer and stirred something in a small metal cup sitting beside the fire. The smell rising from it was strange but comforting, like broth mixed with warm herbs. After a long silence, Lyra whispered, "Lyra." Her voice cracked. He turned, touching his chest. "Rourke." She repeated it softly to herself. "Rourke. Close enough." He smiled. Only a little, but it was real. The moment didn't last. A sudden, sharp growl echoed through the trees outside. Not a friendly animal sound. Something hungry. Something hunting. Lyra clutched the blanket. "They're close," she whispered. Rourke stood instantly. He picked up his weapon, its faint blue lines glowing to life. His movements were calm, practiced, almost too quiet for someone his size. Branches rustled. Heavy breathing approached the hollow. Lyra backed away from the entrance, her heart pounding in her throat. Through the trees, a tall, thin shape stepped into view, its body shaped like stretched bone, arms long and sharp. Its eyes burned like coals. It sniffed the air, slow and cruel. Rourke didn't speak. He didn't shout. He aimed and fired. The blast lit the clearing in blinding white. The creature's head snapped back, and its body collapsed into the wet leaves with a heavy thud. A horrible smell rose immediately, burned flesh mixed with rotten fruit. Rourke stepped forward, checked the creature's body, then dragged it away with one arm as if it weighed nothing. The jungle swallowed the corpse in seconds. When he returned, Lyra was curled up small, shaking. He didn't scold her. He sat beside her on the ground, placed another ration cube in front of her, and pushed it gently toward her. "You're safe," he said quietly, even though she couldn't understand every word. But she understood the feeling. She ate the food. Slowly, carefully. Rourke watched, making sure she wasn't alone. After a while, Lyra pointed at him. "Fireman." Ark raised an eyebrow. "Fireman." She nodded hard. "You smell like fire." He blinked, then let out a small, tired laugh. For the first time, Lyra smiled too. Later that night, she fell asleep sitting next to him, her head against his arm. The jungle still growled. Shadows still shifted. But she did not fear them the way she used to. Because the fireman, with the quiet eyes, was still awake, still watching over her, still ready to protect her if anything came close. For the first time since the crash, she slept without dreaming of monsters. Because now she wasn't alone. The jungle did not warn them. One moment the air was calm, warm, almost peaceful. The next, the sky turned black, so dark it felt like someone had thrown a giant blanket over the world. The wind arrived without warning, sliding through the leaves like cold fingers. Far in the distance, lightning flashed white against the clouds. Lyra jolted awake. Rourke was already on his feet, packing fast, his movements sharp and focused. He said a word she didn't understand, storm, but she didn't need the meaning to feel the danger rising around them. The air changed. Heavy. Electric. Wrong. A deep roar rolled across the jungle, but it wasn't thunder. It was something alive. Something big. Lyra grabbed the blanket around her shoulders. "Rourke?" He didn't answer with words. He lifted her gently into his arms and secured his weapon across his back. His grip was firm, steady, safe. They moved through the forest quickly, branches bending against the wind. Leaves whipped through the air like sharp blades. Rain began to fall, thin at first, then suddenly heavy. Cold drops slammed against Lyra's skin like tiny stones. She buried her face in his chest. His heartbeat was steady, calm, like he wasn't afraid at all. Lightning cracked above them, lighting the jungle in a flash of white. For that single second, she saw shadows, shapes following them between the trees. More than one. Her small voice trembled. "They're coming." Rourke tightened his hold on her. He didn't look back. He just walked faster, boots sinking into the rising mud. The storm grew wild. Wind howled like a monster trying to claw through the sky. Trees bent until they almost snapped. Water poured down every branch and leaf. Suddenly, Rourke stopped. Ahead of them stood a massive tree, its trunk twisted like a giant spiral. At its base, a hollow dark opening yawned wide. A shelter. Not perfect, but dry. He ducked inside and placed Lyra down on a patch of thick roots. She shivered, dripping rain. The hollow was barely big enough for both of them, but it was safer than the open forest. Rourke switched on a small lamp attached to his belt. Its soft white glow filled the space. The storm outside roared like a living thing, shaking the tree from the outside. Lyra watched Rourke kneel at the entrance, weapon ready, body blocking most of the opening. He looked like a dark statue, silent, still, unbreaking. She whispered, "Why did you help me?" Rourke didn't turn. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then a quiet word left his lips. "Alone." She didn't need more explanation. She felt the sadness in that single word. The weight behind it. He had been left behind too. She crawled closer. "Someone left you?" His jaw tightened. He didn't answer, but his silence was enough. Before she could say anything more, a sharp snap came from outside. A branch breaking, or something stepping on one. Lyra froze. Rourke instantly shut off the lamp, plunging them into darkness. Only the storm's echo remained. Then the sound came again, closer. A heavy breath. Wet. Slow. Something dragged its claws along the outside of the tree. Lyra covered her mouth with both hands. Her heart hammered so hard she thought the creature could hear it. A growl vibrated through the wood. Then, crash. A massive claw punched through the opening, ripping bark like paper. Lyra screamed as splinters flew past her face. Rourke fired twice, the blasts lighting the hollow like lightning. The creature shrieked, a deep, tearing sound that rattled her bones. The tree shook under its weight. Rourke grabbed Lyra with one arm and pulled her behind him. Another claw ripped through the bark. A long head pushed in, skin shiny like wet stone, mouth full of teeth. It hissed, smelling the air, searching for her. Rourke fired again. Click. Empty. The monster lunged. Lyra screamed and threw up her hands instinctively. The metal band on her wrist glowed bright blue. Brighter. Brighter. Boom. A burst of blue energy exploded from her palm. The shockwave slammed into the creature's face and hurled it backward out of the hollow. The entire tree shook, and the roar from the beast was swallowed by the storm. Silence. Only rain. Only thunder. Lyra stared at her trembling hand, glowing like burning ice. I didn't mean to, she whispered. Rourke stared at her, eyes wide, not afraid, but amazed. Slowly, a small smile tugged at his lips. That, he said softly, was something else. Lyra looked outside, the monster gone, the storm still raging. She felt her heartbeat slowly calm. For the first time, she realized she wasn't just a scared child. Something inside her was waking up. Something powerful. Rourke lifted her again, his voice steady. We move before it comes back. She wrapped her arms around him tight. The night was still dangerous. But now Lyra had more than fear inside her. She had fire of her own. The storm chased them long after the monster vanished into the darkness. Rain hammered the leaves in endless sheets, turning the ground into thick mud. Wind bent entire trees, snapping branches like thin sticks. Rourke carried Lyra through the chaos, one step at a time, refusing to slow. His breath came out rough, but steady. He wouldn't let the night win. Lyra held on to him tightly, her glowing wrist slowly dimming, the warmth fading from her skin. She was exhausted. Her head rested against his shoulder as lightning lit the sky again. Ahead of them, tall rocks rose like broken teeth from the ground. At the base of the cliff was a dark opening, a cave wide enough for them to enter. Rourke stopped, studying it carefully before stepping inside. The moment they crossed the entrance, the world changed. The wind stopped. The rain faded. The darkness wrapped around them like a thick blanket. Rourke switched on a small lamp. The soft white glow spread across the stone walls, and Lyra froze. Bones. Everywhere. Some small, some large, some scattered across the ground. Old helmets, cracked visors, metal boxes rusted with time. Strips of fabric that once were uniforms. Scratched hands on stone walls, frozen in time. The cave had been a shelter once, but not a safe one. Lyra stepped closer, her small feet silent on the cold floor. She whispered, "They died here." Rourke knelt beside one of the skeletons. He brushed away dust from a metal tag still lying near the collarbone. His jaw tightened. "Humans," he said softly. Lyra's heart tightened. "People like you?" He nodded once. His eyes were dark, filled with memories she didn't know, loss, battles, pain. She could almost feel the weight of every soldier who had taken their final breath inside this cave. Rourke set down his weapon carefully and checked the walls. His movements were slow but alert. He inspected the ceiling, the corners, every shadow. Only when he felt sure the cave was safe did he finally sit down. Lyra stayed near the bones. Something about them pulled her closer. She reached out but stopped her hand before touching them. "Why did they stay here?" she whispered. "Maybe they were chased," Rourke answered. "Maybe they were hiding." His voice dropped lower. "Maybe they had no choice." Lyra hugged herself. "Like us." Rourke looked at her, really looked, and nodded. "Yes, like us." They made a small camp near the cave wall. No fire this time. The smoke would give them away. Rourke placed heat packs under a blanket and let Lyra sit on it. He gave her another cube of food, then checked her bandages. "You're doing better," he said. She smiled weakly. "Because of you." He shook his head. "Because you kept going." For a while they sat in quiet. Not because there was nothing to say, but because the silence felt full. Full of memory, full of respect for those who had died here, full of relief for being alive. Then Lyra saw it. A faint blue shimmer on the far wall, a soft color echoing the glow from her wristband. She stood slowly and walked toward it. Rourke noticed and followed. It was a symbol carved into the stone, a circle with lines spreading outward, almost like a sun. It pulsed faintly, as if breathing. Lyra reached out. The second her fingers touched the mark, her wristband blazed bright blue. The symbol lit up with it, glowing stronger, brighter. A soft hum filled the cave. A broken datapad near the bones flickered. Its screen jumped from black to static, then to a damaged recording. Rourke grabbed it quickly, tapping the cracked corner until a voice came through, rough, filled with fear, but still understandable. "If you're hearing this, the child is the key. The light isn't a curse, it's the answer. Protect the child before they come back. Lyra's breath caught. Me? She whispered. They meant me? Rourke didn't hesitate. Yes. She stepped back, the glow from her wrist dimming. But I don't understand my power. I don't even know why I have it. I'm not special. Rourke crouched to her level. You survived a crash. You fought a monster. You lit up a cave that's been dead for years. If that's not special, I don't know what is. She looked at the glowing symbol again. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of it. Something inside her felt different. Bigger. Stronger. Awake. Outside, the storm started to fade. The jungle quieted, but the silence was heavy, like the world was holding its breath. Rourke tightened his grip on his weapon. They'll come, he whispered. Whatever killed these soldiers, it knows you're alive. Lyra moved closer to him, her voice small but steady. Then we face it together. And for the first time, she believed those words. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was beginning to understand who she truly was. The storm disappeared by morning, but the peace that followed did not feel real. It was too quiet, too still. Even the insects refused to sing. The jungle smelled of wet soil and old danger. Rourke stood at the cave entrance with his weapon ready, scanning every shadow. Lyra sat inside on a flat rock, hugging her knees. The blue glow from her wrist had faded to a soft pulse, like a heartbeat. She couldn't stop staring at it. Why me? Why this power? Why now? Rourke looked back into the cave. Eat something, he said. You'll need strength. She took a small bite of a ration cube, but her stomach twisted. They're coming, aren't they? He didn't lie. Yes. A deep thud echoed through the trees. Lyra jumped. Rourke raised his weapon. Then another thud. Then two more. Steady. Heavy. Getting closer. Lyra crawled next to him. Rourke. He put a hand on her shoulder. Stay behind me. But she didn't move away. The trees in front of the cave rustled violently. Leaves shook loose. Branches snapped. Then one of the large beasts stepped into the clearing. Bigger than any they'd seen before. Thick armor plates covering its chest, horns curved like blades, mouth wide with rows of sharp, shiny teeth. Two smaller ones followed, faster, their eyes burning bright red. The big one roared. The sound shook dust from the cave's ceiling. Lyra trembled. But she didn't hide. Rourke fired the first shot. The blast hit the biggest creature square in the chest, leaving a smoking dent, but the beast didn't fall. It charged, the ground shaking with every step. Rourke shouted, "Left." Lyra threw herself to the side as the monster's claw scraped across the cave entrance. She lifted her hand, but her light sputtered like a dying flame. "Come on," she whispered to her wrist. "Please." The smaller beast leapt toward her. Rourke spun around and shot it midair. It crashed to the ground, legs kicking weakly. But the third beast was already climbing up the rocks to reach her from behind. "Lyra!" Rourke yelled. She turned too late. The creature lunged, its teeth inches from her face. Instinct took over. Her wristband flared bright blue, hotter than ever. A blast of energy erupted, wild and uncontrolled. The shockwave didn't push the monster away. It threw it against a tree so hard the trunk cracked down the middle. Lyra gasped as her arm shook violently from the effort. "I didn't mean that much." Rourke didn't get time to answer. The biggest beast finally forced its way into the cave. Its massive claws dug into the stone floor. Saliva dripped from its jaws as it stomped toward Rourke. Rourke fired again. The shot hit the creature's face, but it only flinched. The next second, the monster swung its claw. Rourke flew backward, slamming into a stone pillar inside the cave. His weapon skidded across the floor. "Rourke!" Lyra screamed. He didn't get up. The monster turned toward her now, breathing hard, red eyes glowing like fire. Its shadow swallowed her small figure. She stumbled backward until her back hit cold stone. Her hand trembled. The light flickered again. "No, don't stop." "Not now." She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to focus, trying to breathe. The monster roared and charged. Lyra lifted both hands. But nothing came out. She was too tired, too scared. The power, whatever it was, refused to obey. The creature lunged. A single blast echoed through the cave. Rourke, bleeding and shaking, had dragged himself across the ground to reach his weapon. He fired one last shot, perfect and steady. The blast hit the beast right between the eyes. It collapsed inches from Lyra, shaking the ground. Silence swallowed the cave. Only Rourke's ragged breathing remained. Lyra pushed the heavy claw off her leg and crawled to him. Rourke, no, no, please get up. He coughed, a weak smile forming. I'm fine. Just remind me not to let that thing hit me again. Tears fell from her eyes as she helped him sit up. He winced but tried to laugh. You're strong, he whispered. Stronger than you think. She looked at her wrist, still glowing faintly. I thought I could do more. You did, he said. You saved both of us. She leaned against him, shaking from fear and relief. Outside, the jungle slowly returned to life. Birds chirping in the distance, leaves rustling softly. The danger had passed. For now. And in the middle of the broken cave, surrounded by defeated monsters and shattered stone, Lyra finally understood something. She was no longer the weak child who had run through the forest alone. She was something else now. Something powerful. Something alive. And she had someone who believed in her. Together, they were becoming something the jungle had never seen before. A human and a child with light in her skin. A team. A threat. A spark the darkness couldn't swallow. Morning light slowly crept into the cave, turning the broken stones golden. For the first time in days, the jungle sounded normal again. Birds called from the branches, insects hummed softly, and the wind moved gently through the leaves. But inside the cave, things were far from peaceful. Rourke sat against the wall, his arm wrapped in cloth soaked with his own blood. His breathing was rough, but steady enough to show he was still fighting. Lyra stayed close beside him, holding a warm pack against his shoulder the way he taught her. You should rest, he whispered. She shook her head. I slept already. You didn't. I don't need much, he said, but she could hear the lie in his voice. She opened a ration cube. You need food. He groaned softly. You're bossy today. You're hurt, she answered simply. I have to be. Rourke let out a tired laugh that turned into a cough. Lyra quickly helped him lean forward until he caught his breath. His face looked pale under the dim cave light. She touched his forehead gently. You saved me again, she whispered. You saved me first, he replied. For a long time, they sat in comfortable silence. Lyra talked quietly about her home, her school, how she once had a pet creature that chirped when it was happy. She talked about her mother's cooking, her father's loud laugh, and the small stone she used to carry for good luck. She never talked this much before. Fear had stolen her voice. Now she found it again. Rourke listened carefully, smiling every now and then. But sometimes his eyes drifted to the cave entrance, where sunlight glowed like a doorway to hope he wasn't sure they could reach. After a pause, Lyra asked, Do you have a family? Rourke looked down at his injured hand. I had a daughter. Lyra's heart squeezed. What happened? He didn't answer right away. His jaw clenched. His eyes closed for a moment, full of memories too painful to speak. She's gone, he said softly. Lyra leaned against him without another question. I'm sorry. He rested his good hand gently on her head. It's not your fault. They stayed that way for a while. Two lost souls sharing quiet sadness. Later, Rourke pointed to her wrist. The glowing band pulsed slowly, like it was breathing with her. How does it feel? He asked. Warm, she said. Not scary anymore. Good, he whispered. Maybe it listens to you. Lyra stared at the blue light with new courage. Do humans have things like this? Special marks. Rourke sighed. Not on the outside, but inside, we carry things. Like pain? She asked. He nodded. Yes, like pain. She smiled a little. Then maybe I'm part human. He actually laughed at that. And maybe I'm part alien. They sat at the edge of the cave as night approached. Stars slowly peeked through the leaves like tiny silver eyes. Lyra pointed upward at a bright moving dot. What's that? A satellite, Rourke said. A machine in the sky. Her eyes widened. A sky robot. He chuckled. Exactly. She tugged on his sleeve. Will someone come for us? His smile faded. He looked at the sky for a long time. Maybe, he said softly. Maybe not. And if they don't? Rourke placed his hand over hers. Then we survive. Lyra held out her pinky finger. Promise. He looked at it, surprised, then gently linked his finger with hers. Promise, he whispered. In that moment, the dangers outside felt smaller than the bond growing between them. They were no longer strangers. They were no longer lost. They were a team. 3 days passed. The jungle stayed strangely calm. Lyra practiced controlling the light on her wrist, making small sparks appear and disappear. Rourke healed slowly, though pain still followed every breath he took. He kept watch anyway, refusing to let his injury stop him. But the quiet didn't last. On the fourth morning, the earth trembled. A deep rumble rolled across the forest, followed by a sharp crack. Lyra rushed to the cave entrance. Two ships cut through the clouds, long, silver, and glowing with blue lights. They moved straight toward the jungle. Rourke, look, he joined her, leaning against the wall. His voice was rough. Rescue ships. Lyra felt her heart jump with hope until she heard it. A scream, then another, then dozens. Creatures poured out of the jungle, their red eyes bright, their claws dripping mud. Some crawled on rocks, others sprinted between trees, all rushing toward the cave, toward her. She took a step back, fear gripping her throat. They're here, all of them. Rourke steadied himself beside her. Then this is it. No running, she whispered. No hiding, he answered. The first monster burst into the clearing. Rourke fired. It fell, but more came behind it. Faster, louder, hungrier. Lyra's wrist glowed fiercely. She lifted both hands. A pulse of blue light rushed forward, slowing the beasts but not stopping them. She pushed harder, her jaw clenched, her body shaking. One creature circled from the side. Rourke shot it down. He reloaded with one hand, sweat running down his temple. Another beast leapt. Lyra spun and blasted it away. The ground trembled under the weight of so many claws. Trees snapped. Leaves flew into the air like green snow. The battle was chaos. Rourke fought like a soldier who had nothing left to lose. Every shot counted, every movement precise. But he was getting slower, weaker. A massive beast, bigger than all the others, charged toward him. Rourke, Lyra screamed. He tried to dodge, but stumbled. The creature's claw slammed into him, knocking him to the ground. His weapon fell from his hand. Lyra ran to him, but the monster blocked her path, roaring so loud the birds scattered from the trees. Her wrist flickered, weak and unstable. No, no, please, she whispered. The monster lunged. Lyra screamed, not in fear this time, but in anger, in power. Her wrist exploded with light. A wall of blue energy surged from her, brighter than the sky, louder than thunder. It hit the entire pack of monsters, forcing them backward. Some fell. Some crawled away. All of them froze. The light did not stop. It formed a barrier between her and the beasts, tall, glowing, unbreakable. For the first time, the creatures looked afraid. The rescue ships landed behind her with a deep roar. Doors opened. Soldiers, human and alien, poured out with weapons drawn. They saw the bodies. They saw the monsters retreating. They saw the glowing child standing in front of a wounded man. No one spoke. The last beast remained for a moment, staring at Lyra with slow, blinking eyes. She stepped forward, her voice steady. Go. The creature lowered its head and vanished into the trees. The battle was over. Two medics rushed to Rourke. Lyra held his hand tightly as he winced in pain. You did it, he whispered. We did it, she answered. They sat together inside the rescue ship, wrapped in warm blankets. Rourke's wounds were being treated. Lyra leaned on his shoulder, watching her wrist glow softly like a tiny blue star. They left me to die, she said in a faint voice. But you didn't. Rourke reached over and gently touched her wrist. Because you were never meant to be alone. She looked up at him. What happens now? He smiled. You don't have to choose alone. Lyra nodded, a small smile growing. Okay, friend. As the ship lifted into the sky, the jungle faded beneath them. A place where monsters once ruled. A place where she once cried alone. Now she left with someone who believed in her. Two survivors. Two warriors. Two souls who refused to break. They didn't run away from the jungle. They rose above it, together.